Hi, and welcome to RecoverED, a podcast from the Magdalen House, a recovery community for alcoholism. We're a 501c3 nonprofit in Dallas, Texas, lovingly known by many as Maggies. Every first and third Wednesday, we drop a new episode from one of our 3 podcast series. In RecoverED, we share education for the community on alcoholism, our programs, and resources for alcoholics and their loved ones. In each episode, you will get to know more about the disease of alcoholism and the solution. I'm your host, Laura Wilson, a recovered alcoholic and the communications manager here at Maggie's. We're so glad you're here. Thanks for listening. Hello, podcast listeners, and welcome to a new season of the Magdalen House podcast. In today's episode of RecoverED, we are going to be talking about Step 1 with Daniel Watts. So Daniel, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm very happy to have you in the chair so that we can hear more of your story. You have been pivotal in helping the Men's House, and you definitely help a lot of men that go through. So I'm very excited to hear more about you and your story. So tell me, Daniel, what makes you an alcoholic? Qualify yourself as an alcoholic first.
Oh, man. For me, that was a totally misunderstood thing for so many years. When I finally gave myself a shot and looked at the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, I was able to find all 3 parts of the disease in my story, in my experience, identification. I was able to identify with that. The allergy, the obsession, this spiritual malady, the way I become without alcohol, just trying to white knuckle it, hang on for dear life.
Tell me about what did it feel like and what did it look like up to the point where you were, like most of us don't want to admit that we are alcoholics, because if we admit that we're alcoholics, you're going to take away our alcohol, which is our solution to everything. What did your countless vain attempts to prove like you were other drinkers look like for you?
Oh, man. Well, I switched from whiskey to malt liquor, wine. I always had this delusion that there was some kind of control. I think in my mind, as long as I didn't set an intention, which I rarely did, especially at the end, whatever happened, happened. You know, and that would give me an illusion of control.
What do you mean by set an intention? Like you weren't gonna get drunk?
Like it's not gonna take me this far this time. You know, being to detox 13 times, I'm not gonna go again. It's not gonna lead to me being homeless or another suicide attempt or something like that. I'm gonna be able to control it this time, and here's how.
Yeah.
So.
What did those methods of control, you just mentioned that you were trying to change your ways of drinking. What did that look like? Like, how did you try to control it? Was it just strictly changing from hard liquor to wine? Like, did you change your environment? What did those methods of control look like?
Definitely hard liquor to wine, but also I would make several trips to the liquor store because I'd get a half pint or a pint and say, I'm going to nurse this, and be back there the third time with one eye open, kind of weaving but trying not to, so they'd make sure they'd sell to me. So that was my little thing, of trying to control it.
When was the first time that you thought maybe that you were an alcoholic? And what did that mean to you? Did being an alcoholic, like, what was your knowledge of powerlessness? Was it just that I can't control and enjoy my drinking?
So I went to my first detox when I was 18 years old, and I knew something had changed inside of me. I never thought it would come to this. You know what I mean? Did a lot of quote-unquote experimenting in high school, and I think I really crossed over when I was 18. Now, I didn't fully concede to my innermost self, which is like doesn't happen in the mind, it happens in the heart, like your innermost self, that I was alcoholic till I was 37. So it took that. It takes pain is such a wonderful thing when you can find the value in it. When you can begin to find the value and say, oh my God, I needed to drink every last drop I drank, to get me to that place where I don't know, help me.
Yeah, no, that's saying that I don't know is one of the most, and I give up is, I think there's a misconception that it's a sign of weakness, that it takes longer, that I can't admit that I am weak and that I failed and that my willpower is not there. But that true admission of defeat is truly what gets us started. in step one. Now, step one says that we admitted that we were powerless over alcohol and that our lives had become unmanageable. What does that powerlessness mean? Do I just have to sit in a chair and say, "Hi, I'm Laura, I'm an alcoholic"? Is that my step one?
Well, that's as far as I ever got when I would go to meetings, until I got a sponsor and began to look at the book. Now you won't find your step one truth in the book. You'll find it in your own experience, but the book is a guide to help you to find that experience, to have a step one experience, right? Do I have this allergy? An allergy is just an abnormal reaction to a substance. My abnormal reaction to a substance is I pick up a few drinks and I feel like I'm gaining control, whereas a normal person feels like they're going to lose control, so they stop drinking, right? It does something for me deep down inside that it doesn't do for the other 90% of the population, right? So I develop what's called the phenomenon of craving, right? I drink, I crave more liquor, despite the consequences, despite how bad it got, despite how afraid I was the last time I showed up in detox, you know? And if that wasn't bad enough, if this allergy wasn't bad enough, I'm trying everything I can do to hang on for dear life and out of fear to stay sober, and I'm left with eventually no choice, right? Now that doesn't negate responsibility for my actions when the bad things I did when I was drinking, but it's a deeper understanding that, my God, man, you know, I'm suffering from a disease and I can hook up with this book and I can identify with it, and it's guiding me, it's begging me to answer these questions, and the only way I can answer them is experientially, through my own experience. You know, I was told by so many people, you know, even when I was 13 years old, when I had my first spiritual awakening as a result of Skol vodka, I was told by so many people, "You're an alcoholic." I didn't know what that meant. I thought I drink too much alcohol. Thank God we have AA and we have the 12 steps, and we can identify with the program of Alcoholics Anonymous through the book, through William Soakworth, you know, and then you know, why am I doing this to myself over and over again, you know? Because I'm such a stubborn person. You can't tell me nothing, right? Thank God the book is suggestive, right? You're trying to tell an alcoholic something, and we're not doing it. But if you suggest, is this you? Here, we're going to leave it open. We're going to leave it up to you to decide, right? So thank God we have something we can identify with, and to see that you know, at certain times, I had no effective mental defense against the first drink because I lost the power of choice, and choice comes from will, and in this respect, even though my will is very, very strong in other respects, in this respect, my will is amazingly weakened, right? And I'll be left without a choice, and it'll look like a good idea, and it'll also look like a choice that I'm choosing this for myself one more time, right? But who in their right mind would do that after a boatload of consequences? Who would choose that for themselves one more time? You know, I would, because I am an alcoholic.
That was the biggest thing for me, because I thought that I was choosing this every single time. You know, I was choosing this, you know, after I lost my place to live, or I lost a car and had all of these other external consequences. Now, we don't always have to have external consequences. I know plenty of people that didn't lose where they live. They never lost a job. They paid all of their bills, but it was that internal feeling of that moral failure. How did you feel when you first heard alcoholism as a disease? Like, did you feel like that was a cop-out, or could you get on board with that?
I felt very separate, different, and unique.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I thought, you know, you know, I had a lot of self-pity. I felt sorry for myself. I was great at being a victim. I was great at victimizing myself, not only other people, but myself, with a certain sense of justification, which was false. Yeah, for me, it was being a victim, right? And I thought there was a lot of stigma, until like I'll give you an example. Like today, I walk into a room full of alcoholics and I'm at home. Right. I've never felt more connected in my life than walking into a room of people where most people in that room are just like me, you know. I always felt different, always felt separate, always felt not enough, inadequate in here, you know? So it's on the other end, you know, it's a wonderful thing. It's a great thing, you know? I'm grateful for alcohol, very grateful for alcohol. It did for me what I couldn't do for myself, and it got me to AA.
Yeah.
It brought me to my knees.
Yeah, there's always, I guess, a little bit of controversy when people hear that alcoholism is the best thing that ever happened to me. Because like you talked about earlier, you know, our experience shows us whether or not we are alcoholics. Only I can decide. I can sit here and hear your story and be like, yeah, you kind of sound like an alcoholic, but ultimately I can't tell you. It's something that you have to figure out for yourself. And there's so much pain in that step one experience because it sounded like you really tried to control your drinking. The biggest obsession of the alcoholic is trying to control and enjoy their drinking. If I'm controlling it, I'm not enjoying it. And if I'm enjoying it, I'm certainly not controlling it. And you'd mentioned that, you know, you thought it was, you know, a matter of willpower. What does your willpower look like in respect to other matters? Like, are you able to quit other things? Or like when it came to alcohol, what was so confusing why you couldn't stop?
So I have a very strong work ethic. I'm a very dedicated and committed husband. When I make up my mind to do something, I'm all in. See, because most of my life I've been, you know, it's been black and white. It's been absolutely this, not absolutely, or absolutely not that, right? And I thought it was that way with alcohol, but the value in our experience with like going back to all those trips to detox and treatment centers and things like that, seeing that there was only ever one reason why I ever drank, because I was in an unfit spiritual condition. That was it. But it always, my mind, and most of us do when we first get here, we go to circumstance. Oh, it was the girlfriend, or it was my job, or the boss, and all this stuff. And I don't believe recovery can begin as long as the problem exists outside of me. As long as I'm a victim, as long as it's because of this, and circumstance, which is really what's running my life, because I'm getting my sense of self outside of myself, and it's dependent on others and how they treat me, and life is fair, right? All these things that are not true. So once I could no longer find the problem outside of myself, once I saw that I drank when there wasn't a cloud on the horizon, and I drank when life was really bad, you know, then it begs the question, why do I drink? You know, if it's really good, if all this energy, that this strong will that I'm putting towards all these external matters, trying to fix them, if everything's in order, what's wrong, right? Because there's something else. There's something else inside of me. There's a piece missing, right? Alcohol did for me what I couldn't do for myself. Alcohol connects me to power that I didn't have, just like the 12 steps connect me to power that I didn't have. It basically does the same thing. Right? It just takes a lot of pain to really get that hard surrender. It's a horrifyingly wonderful experience, but it feels really crappy, right? But it takes what it takes, and it's a beautiful thing. You know, pain is a beautiful thing for an alcoholic, because then our ears finally open just a little bit, so we can hear things and take suggestions that don't feel good. You know, so.
When you're talking about this victimization and self-pity, it kind of sounds like your mind can't distinguish between the true and the false.
Yes, there's a couple different ways to look at that. The truth is that it's never going to be different, right? I have this allergy, I have this abnormal reaction. I lose control when I pick up a drink. Also, the false for me was that I don't care. I don't care about step one. I don't care about the steps or meetings. Or if you live, you'll care. If you live, if your pain brings you back, if alcohol brings you back to AA or a spiritual way of life, you will care. Because my biggest, what I went out behind, I don't care. Poor me, I don't care. You know. So if you live through your next relapse or your last relapse, you're gonna care. You're gonna care.
Can you remember a specific moment when I guess you started to care?
The last time I went to detox in 2022.
Tell me about that.
I was scared. There was no more humans left, you know. I lost my mother when I was 23. I lost my dad when I was 22. Mom died right next to me in the car. I had pushed everybody that I like I had this undeserving feeling. Everybody tried to love me or tried to help me. Get away from me. Let me kill myself, basically, you know? So laying in that detox, the first night I was there, I watched some people come through, and I had some little experience in recovery before. And then I watched a second set of people come through the next night. And the second set of people, I knew the guy. And then I sat down and I asked this man to sponsor me. As sick as I was, I got up and I went to that meeting and I asked that man to sponsor me. And he got me through the steps in 18 days. And I was busy going to a place that I go to get sponsees. I religiously went up there every day for like 3-4 hours till I could find people to work with, till I could find people to give back what was so freely given to me, you know. And that was all born in step one. That was all born in hopelessness. That was all born in this spiritual malady, this allergy, this obsession, you know. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So we keep kind of mentioning this theme of this powerless over choice. What does powerless over choice look like before we ever pick up the drink, and how does that mental obsession play a role?
I'm going along, just doing what I'm taught to do. You know, what I was conditioned to do, to go be successful. You know, try to build up a great life, my life, man, it just comes out of left field, right? Because when I get sober, I know that I used to come up with this unconscious relapse prevention plan, this trigger list. You know, I don't want to get, you know, unbusy. Got to stay busy, which is just really a step one reservation. You know, that I have some power to do something about it. Mm-hmm. And I'm going along, and man, I'm thinking, man, I was making too big of a deal. I'm one of those guys that does really good. I'm a sprinter, you know, do really good for about 2-3 months. And all of a sudden it's like, man, what was that all about? You know, maybe I just have a one-part disease, you know, maybe I just got this allergy and I got to be careful not to put any alcohol in my body. And then there it is. There's the thought. Hits you out of left field, strange mental blank spot, like the book says, and it takes you out. And I've gone kicking and screaming, meaning like crying, like I don't want to do this. I know I don't want to do this. And I do it, and I've gone without any thought or effort. Like maybe this time, you know, it's not really clear. It's not a clear, pure thought. You know, it's subtle. You know, deep down inside, you know you're doing something that ain't too good. It ain't gonna be good, right? But you think maybe, just maybe this is the one time. You know, like it was when I was 15 before I crossed over. Maybe it's just like that. Your mind goes back to those times because the alcoholic ego is obsessed with control of circumstance, control of alcohol, control of internal symptoms. You know, maybe there's something I can do. And until I came to the place where I realized there was nothing I could do, that powerlessness, there was room for a power to start working. But as long as there's something I can do, I'm not powerless, you know? So, yeah.
So the big book tells us at a certain point in the drinking of every alcoholic, he passes into a state where the most powerful desire to stop drinking is of absolutely no avail. This tragic situation has already arrived in practically every case long before it is suspected. The fact is that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice and drink. Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. We are unable at certain times to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory of the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. We are without defense against the first drink. Can you break that down for us?
Yes, absolutely. So for reasons they didn't even understand back then, but they observed in the alcoholic, right? It's kind of like, I'll give you a scenario, right? In a room full of newcomers, and I'm a newcomer, right? We all work really hard on our lives, right? We build up a great life. We might, live indoors now, right? And we have a car. We even have insurance on that car, right? Bank account, little money in it, right? Now one day, let's go to that bank. Let's take that plastic card, put it in the ATM, take $200 out, and let's go over to the liquor store and say, hey, can you sell me some of that stuff that ruined my life 10 times before this? Who would do that? I would, because I'm an alcoholic. right? And that's something that a lot of non-alcoholics do not understand, right? Some do. Some have enough empathy to understand the insanity, but it's like somebody with another mental illness. They can't just choose not to feel that mental illness or to suffer from the symptoms of that mental illness. It's the same with alcohol, right? My consequences, it doesn't get bad enough for an alcoholic. A lot of people think it'll get bad enough for me. It never got bad enough because I drink no matter what. No matter what, I drink always. There is no don't drink no matter what. That's for people with a one-part disease that react abnormally and they just go to treatment or go to detox one time, right? And say, I can't do that no more. Their consequences keep them sober. There was never any amount of consequences that would keep me sober, right? It never got bad enough, you know? Even though, like in Bill's story, fear sobered him for a bit, and fear sobered me for a bit, you know, consequence, right? But it really it takes pain to bring you to that surrender, not fear, you know. So
when you say it takes pain and not fear, why is it that a full surrender to step one is essential before any real recovery can begin? What happens if we only partially concede that we're alcoholic?
Well, let me start out by saying that alcoholics are not partial people. We're all or nothing people, see? And I usually settle for about as much AA and about as much 12 steps as I settled for in my drinking, right? And I went all the way in my drinking, so I'm going to go all the way here, right? Because of what happens to the alcoholic when you take alcohol away, right? Because I become chronically bored. I become really agitated and irritated with life, right? And I start to carry this sense of entitlement that life is fair. And now that I'm sober, you need to treat me with respect. No, just not so. There's a condition that shows up inside of me. It's called a spiritual malady, the unmanageability of my life that shows up in full force with me just trying to hang on for dear life and go to a treatment center that tries to teach me how I can help myself, right? When my experience shows me there's nothing I can do to help myself, right? So
when you talk about the other, like the people who aren't empathetic or the people who are watching you from the outside and seeing this insanity happen over and over again, okay, you just got out of detox, okay, you just, whatever event happened that fear sobers you up in that situation. I think there's a common misconception that we have to hit rock bottom in order to stop. But I've also heard that, there is no rock bottom for an alcoholic. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
I think that when the pain of your current circumstances outweighs your fear of change or fear of trying it another way, that's when we change. Because I was always scared. I was scared to death of any kind of a different life. You know what I mean? I was scared of the unknown, but I was no longer scared of the unknown when I had nothing left to lose in here, right? So everybody's bottom is different, but it happens in here. It has nothing to do with the outsides. The outsides can push you in so that you surrender in here. Circumstance can play a role in that, but really it takes place in here, and it's different for everybody, But the only bottom for an alcoholic is death. That's the truth. It never gets bad enough for us. You know what I mean? The only bad enoughness that can be productive for an alcoholic is to bring that person to a place of surrender, to a place of the magical words, I don't know, help me. I don't know, help me. Because I would ask somebody for their advice, and I'd run it through this filter in my head, and if it didn't match up with what I was already going to do, I was just asking them to co-sign my bullshit. But if it didn't add up to what I already knew what I was going to do, I'd kind of like, oh, thank you. Yeah. Instead of, I'm dying, please help me. I'll do anything. You know? There's a difference.
So what was the point then in asking these people for help when you knew you weren't going to do it? Was it just to give an outside appearance that you were trying to change your life or get the heat off your back so that they wouldn't take away your alcohol?
I was a great people pleaser for many, many years. I thought if I became what you wanted me to be, that if I could get your acceptance, that someday I would accept me. And I didn't. I hated me. right? So I could wear several different masks. And the truth of it is, I was only ever trying to please one person, me.
In your experience, how did the loss of control after the first drink differ from normal drinking behavior?
I don't have a lot of experience with normal drinking behavior, but I would imagine that if I went back to Daniel when Daniel was maybe 13, 14, 15, when he would go long periods without drinking, and then sort of like what they call binge drinking back then. After I crossed over after 18, it wasn't like that. It wasn't like that. I became a daily drinker. I became a person who woke up in the morning shaking like a leaf. I remember one time going to a public detox, and they said, you need to get to the ER. They took my BP. It was 191 over 131, and I was shaking. I couldn't keep water down anymore. I thought I was going to die, you know? A normal person picks up a drink, right? And they start to feel it. They pick up another drink. I'm good. I think I'm going to lose control. That's what their mind tells them. My mind doesn't tell me that. My mind tells me the opposite. Alcohol has the opposite effect on me than it does a normal person. I have an abnormal reaction. The abnormal reaction is I feel like I'm about to gain control. It's a delusion. It is opposite of the truth. It is insanity. So that I think is the difference.
Yeah. Step one is a very painful step, it sounds like, and that there's not a lot of hope in it, and that only our experience is what's going to tell us whether or not we're an alcoholic. You know, the body test, like, can I have one or two drinks, stop, switch to water, and be happy about it? Sounds like your answer is no. I know my answer is definitely still no. And that the main problem is that my mind tells me I don't have this problem. I was overreacting, right? My mind's going to tell me different forms of delusion, as you said, to get me to that drink again. The first 43 pages of the big book are basically telling us, does our experience align with that of an alcoholic, right? Do we feel like they felt? Do we drink like they did? Are you truly an alcoholic? Was there a specific line in the book that you read that you were like, yes, that is me, and it got you to accept that you were an alcoholic? Or was it just a series of everything autobiographical in the first 43 pages?
I think it's both. I think doing the work of step one prayerfully and turning statements into questions. No matter how long sober you are, you can have a step one experience by going back into your own experience and turning statements into questions, and answering them experientially, versus like concluding, because we're conditioned to who's got the answer. I do. That shuts off any more experience I'll have with the question, because I already know. I already got mine. I think Not a Cloud on the Horizon, End to a Perfect Day, really hit me hard, because I had this picture in my mind that, if my depression gets bad enough, I need to be on guard. If I get too irritable, or I do this, I need to practice these things they showed me how to do in treatment. Versus, when I had $32,000 in my bank account and there was no cloud on the horizon, everything was fine. I had a fiance and a stepdaughter, and everything was great. I could not find the unmanageability of my life outside of myself. And I relapsed, because there was something missing in here, I was left without a choice eventually. So
that second part of step one, when it says our lives have become unmanageable, does that mean like my life is unmanageable because I can't keep a roof over my head, or I can't keep my family around or friends? Like, what does that unmanageability mean in step one?
So I want to say this. The furthest I ever got with step one is my life's unmanageable because of alcohol. Take the alcohol away and my life will be very manageable. I can go on my merry way. But what shows up in the real alcoholic is things like depression, emotional regulation problems. I can't make a living that's satisfactory to my spirit. I can't seem to be of real help to other people. And the biggest one for all of us is fear. Right? The doctor calls it being restless, irritable discontent, this chronic boredom, this chronic malcontentment, this chronic not enoughness, this chronic feeling of not being complete. So I have to boost my ego in a room so I feel better than everybody. Or I could walk into a room and I might feel lesser than everybody. I could never just be another human being among humans, or another alcoholic among alcoholics, which is what I have today. And I couldn't have that before. There was always this this teeter-totter of I'm not good enough. What can I do? How can I make myself whole? Well, the truth is I can't make myself whole, right? And that's a big part of this unmanageability of my life, right? That depression is a huge symptom of this. Emotional I take things personally. I carry this sense of entitlement. All these things show up sober, and a lot of the world thinks that take alcohol away. How are you feeling? Not too good. I lost my alcohol, right?
Yeah.
I lost the only thing that was right with me for so many years, right? Take that away, and here's what you're dealing with, the unmanageability of my life, because alcohol treats alcoholism.
What would you tell any listeners about the Magdalen House? How did you get involved with the Magdalen House?
The Magdalen House is magical. If you want to be done for good and for all, it's a hell of a start. It's a hell of a start. And the guys that leave the house, I say to them, I give them a hug after they're done dropping their leaf, and I say to them, this is not an end. This is just a beginning. I got involved with the Magdalen House. I had a couple people reach out to me from the organization, asked me to interview here. I did. I love my job. I love what I do. It gives me purpose beyond a paycheck, beyond any material thing, right? Something you really can't put a price tag on, Personally, the Magdalen House welcomes you with the 54 Foundation meetings, welcomes you into your own experience, which is what the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous does. The way I read the Big Book now is that, this is me. The way I used to read the Big Book before sobriety was them, those people over there. And I'm those people over there, but didn't see it, It is truly, truly a blessing and an honor to work here, and to watch people. I love being wrong today. I love seeing a guy come through the door and this guy ain't got a chance in hell, and I'm judging the hell out of him in my mind, but I see him like 3-4 days later. This is a different guy. He's already starting to change. He's already starting to get it, right? He's already starting to fully concede to his innermost self that he's an alcoholic. And let me tell you that the longer sober you are, the more you will have experience with powerlessness, not just alcohol, powerless over your life, sober, powerless over circumstance, other people, all these things. And there's great freedom in that powerlessness, because it's like hands off. It's okay, I can have peace today, versus let me just, put the screws to it, and it just causes me pain and suffering.
Yeah.
So,
I heard you say that earlier, that your pain has become your purpose. What does your life look like today now that you've had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps?
I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not afraid. I suffer from mild depression. It comes and goes, right? I kind of observe it. It's there, right? Stay close to God. I know what the word commitment means. I know what empathy and compassion means. I can sit with somebody in their pain today and not be consumed by it, right? And that's all a result of the 12 steps.
What was the moment that you finally decided to honestly and thoroughly work these steps after your step 1 experience?
August 8th, 2022. I was ready to take suggestions that didn't feel good against my will, because my will led me to no choice. My will led me to no choice, right? And then I was given the grace to make a choice, right? Make a choice like, I need help me. I don't have this thing, life, figured out. And the evidence of that is that I keep drinking. I keep going back to this solution, right? And it's not working anymore.
So if somebody was listening to this and were teetering on the edge of, am I an alcoholic or am I not? What would you tell that person who's struggling and listening to this right now?
Don't ever let anybody tell you you're alcoholic, right? I think a lot of times they diagnose us, they ask us when do you start drinking? Do you drink in the morning? How many OWIs do you have? What are your consequences? Do you miss work? Well, you got to have a job to miss work first, right? So they diagnose us by all this superficial stuff. Pick up the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, right? If you're questioning whether you're an alcoholic or not, read that book. Start with the doctor's opinion. Read the first 43 pages, right? Get a sponsor, right? But if you're not convinced and you've had some consequences, go get you a drink, please. I had to.
That sounds very counterintuitive to tell an alcoholic to go get a drink. Why are we telling them to go get a drink?
Of course it does, because of all the conditioning of people that try to save us and shield us from temptation, right? Who would want to live that way? Who would want to live like being afraid all the time? To be made that we're small people, that we're insignificant small people, and that we have to avoid, don't go into 7-Eleven to get your gas, because there might be alcohol there, right? Because unless a person is convinced, not here, but here, until they fully get it in their heart, in their very being, that they are alcoholic, there's no human that can persuade them. Alcohol is the great persuader in that respect. Alcohol does its job. Alcohol is very important to a spiritual awakening. Alcohol is very important to get an alcoholic to a place where they hear something other than their own mind, So.
Daniel, this has been great. I cannot wait. This will be our first episode of 2026 coming out. So thank you so much. Hopefully there are some listeners that are in the middle of their dry January, and hopefully there are some that have failed that dry January miserably. If that sounds like you, then maybe give the Magdalen House a call to screen.
Thank you so very much. I do appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to RecoverED. If this episode has offered hope, clarity, or comfort to you, please consider making a donation to the Magdalen House. By paying it forward, you help make sure the next alcoholic gets the same chance, completely free. You can give anytime at magdalenhouse.org. We release new episodes every first and third Wednesday, so be sure to tune in. Want to learn more or stay connected? Visit magdalenhouse.org or find us on social by searching The Magdalen House. The Magdalen House is a privately funded 501c3 nonprofit in Dallas, Texas, and every program we offer is possible because people like you choose to give. Thank you for helping us change and save lives.